Welcome to this show. Today we're going to discuss website design principles. The first thing I want to discuss is how you define your site's purpose. You want to try to narrow it down. If it's too broad a topic, meaning that you're going to have a ton of pages or too much information on one page for anybody to digest what's going on, you need to try to narrow it down to one specific topic or maybe a couple of topics. Now, your homepage options, there's a lot of them available. You could have video, you could have scrolling banners, you could have scrolling images, you could have static page with just simple text and so forth, which is what most sites use. But you don't want to clutter it up. You don't want it to be too confusing or noisy. Yeah, noisy is a good word. You don't want it to be noisy because the noise might confuse your visitors. You want to try to keep your homepage text very short. I guess you could say keep it at about a 6th to 8th grade reading level. I know we all like to include flamboyant and expressive text, but at the same time, I don't want my readers to have to use a dictionary in order to understand what I'm trying to say. An audience attention span is generally about 20 seconds before they're going to up and leave your site. So there are a couple of tools that I use. One of them is Grammarly. Grammarly is great for basically your editing of your text and making sure that things work. And you can use the free version of Grammarly. I don't use the paid version. I pretty much write all of my articles in Grammarly. But then what I do is I go over to the Hemingway Editor and I copy all my text from Grammarly and I paste it into Hemingway. And that really helps me narrow down. I might have words that might be a little too confusing or difficult to understand. I might have run-on sentences. I might have sentences that are too long and complicated, and I might have to restructure the way that I originally wrote it and everything. And the Hemingway Editor is a great way to really narrow it down and get the text the way you want it to look. Now, if you want to add more content about a particular subject that you're talking about on the home page, you can create a link that opens up a new tab and opens up your facts, or maybe opens up an article about what you're talking about. You can even create the link to be an anchor text that is on your facts that opens that particular facts item that you're discussing. The next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you have multiple call to actions. It doesn't matter if you have, I guess you could overdo it, but for the most part, you want to have a call to action. You don't want somebody scrolling down the page and somewhere not above them or below them a place where they can, hey, I want to get this, where do I click? I have multiple call to actions on my website, and I will show that to you. Another thing that you want to do is you want to prioritize your pages. And what I mean by prioritize your pages is you're going to have pages that don't necessarily need to be in your main navigation at the top. Having a long bar with just too many items could be very confusing. So for like your terms of service, your about us page, maybe pages that aren't really relevant to the item but discuss about items that are involved in the item and so forth, and I can show you that. Now, the next thing I want to point out is your selection of fonts. You really don't want to overdo it, but most importantly, you don't want to have multiple fonts all over the place. You want to try to narrow your fonts down to particular font choices. One particular font I would use for heading, and the other particular font I would use for text. I want to show you a couple of them that I use. One heading font I really like is Righteous. It's kind of unique. It's got a different way that the text flows and everything, but it's still very easy to read. But as you can notice with a lot of the sharp lines and so forth at the feet and at the heading, you don't really want that as your primary text element. Another heading font that I really like is Lobster, and I am in fact using this on my site at the moment. I like the way that it looks, and it's I believe a good choice for a heading font, but not necessarily something to use in the text. Next, I want to show you here the Roboto font. This is a very popular font. As you can see, it's got very clean lines. It's very easy to read. It's got bold. It's got multiple ways that you can use it, but it's a great font for your average paragraph text. And another font that I use is Montserrat. I'm currently using this on my site, and as you can see, it's got very clean lines. It's very legible. It's very easy to read. So those are good things to follow, and I've left all the links below for you to be able to go to the Google Fonts page here and download them for yourself. They're all free. Next, I'd like to talk about the use of images. Now, when you're using images, you do need to be somewhat careful. You do need to worry about copyright infringement, and you need to give credit where credit is due and so forth. But there are plenty of sites that offer you to find images for free that you can use. First, let me talk about Google Images. Google is a great source to find just about anything you can think of. Once you type in what you're looking for, make sure to hit Images at the top, which opens up. And then on the far right, you'll see the tools, and then there's a drop down. You can see different selections. I suggested the one that is labeled Reuse with Modification so that I can modify the file, and then I don't have to worry about any form of copyright infringement. All of these images that you see here on Google Plus are free, and you don't have to worry about the copyright on them and everything, and you can do with them as you'd like. Cut out the flower, take out the background, whatever you'd like to do to manipulate your image. This next site here is Pixabay, and Pixabay has images, video, pictures. They're all free to use, and they do have paid items as well, but there's a ton of free stuff that's available to you. On most of these sites, the only thing that they ask is that you give credit to the individual that originally uploaded the photo to the site. And that's pretty simple to do with simple text at the very bottom of the image, or you could even create a page that is giving thanks to, like a thanks page, and then list every image creator's name on that page as well as the sites and so forth. And you could just have one link at the very bottom of your page that says thank you or something like that, and it leads to that thank you page. Now, as you can see, as I hover over some of these items, these are images that are either short video clips. They may be MP4 or they may be GIF files, and you can download them as well. As you can see here on the top bar, you have photos, videos, illustrations, vector art. Our next one here is Flickr. It as well is also another image software. I believe they have videos as well. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on Flickr, but it is another free website. You can sign up for it for free. They also have paid, so remember that all these sites have something that's paid pretty much. As you can see here, I'll type mountain into the top and it'll open a page. And in the drop down right here, you can see you have all creative license, commercial use allowed, modifications are allowed, commercial use and mods allowed, and then no known copyright restrictions, and then the US government works. But you can choose, and I would probably just select modifications allowed, because I wouldn't necessarily be using these images for any form of commercial. But if you are using it for commercial, you do have the option to select that here. This next site is Pexels. It's another image editing. You can get images and short video clips and everything from this site as well. Here I typed in shark. There's some great images right here. I really like that one on the top left. Oh, it's got whales on there too. And some underwater images. Very nice. And here we have some great little short video clips or GIFs. Really nice if you had a site talking about diving or underwater adventures or something of that nature. Or if you just wanted it as a neat little background with something else over the top of it. Okay, next we have Unsplash. This is a very popular place to come to download images and videos and so forth. Just remember that anything that you download, you will need to give some form of credit to the person. At least that's what they ask you to do. And I believe that that is being fair. You should give some kind of credit to somebody that offered you the original image that you're now using. Now I just typed in fruit. As you can see, they have a really nice layout with different ways of searching. You can even search for an individual item if that's what you're looking for. So, on to what we were originally discussing. Let's look at some websites about what you do not want to do, what you want to try to avoid when you're creating a website. Now, this first website, I can't really see a whole lot of positive in it. I see a lot of negatives. One is the use of white space. Two is the background image. Number three, and a big one, is Adobe is getting rid of Flash. And a lot of browsers, your newer browsers these days, will not support Flash, not right out of the box. They're going to ask you if you want to open the Flash item. So try not to use any Flash elements on your site. Everything is being converted over to HTML5. So this website is probably very old. I also noticed that the background image is kind of scattered all over the place and it doesn't fit the full page. I did say that this looks like this was created quite a while back and probably hasn't been updated in, well, from the looks of it, possibly years. And this one is another one that looks like it just, somebody began working on it, but then they stopped working on it. Very bad with the contrast effect, especially on these menu items over here. Probably with a few more items as well. See, it fails. It fails there too. Probably change that text to maybe be white or something. Let's see if I can manipulate it at all. Yeah, I can adjust the background a little bit. So I got that area to an A. So you can see this contrast tool is really nice. After you design your site, you can go back and you can inspect it with using this. Make sure that your contrast looks good between your colors all over the place. You want to make sure everything's legible and easy to read. This is a very old design and one that would probably make somebody just go somewhere else right away. You don't want a design like this. It also looks very like they're using a very old template. It's probably another one of those sites that hasn't been updated in years. It may be a personal site. It's hard to say. Our next site here actually doesn't look too bad. I would probably make some adjustments on the links in the center area just because the contrast, you can read it, but I would probably lighten up that lettering just a little bit. It has hyperlinks and then additional links that pop up above the links. So you can go to those. Oh, closing it just closes the links at the top. But if you're not hovered over the links, they're not there anyway, so don't really know what that's there for. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, this site hasn't been updated in quite a while. Oh, this is bad. Look at all the discoloration, all the text lines being different color and everything. Makes it very difficult to read. You should have like an order to your text. You should have something that stands out that's bold, which is your heading for the text. And then you should have the text underneath it. But if you start using multiple colors and everything, that is not very professional and it looks very sloppy. So I wouldn't suggest doing that in any way, shape, or form. The only discoloration in your text should be for your hyperlinks. Basically, the hyperlinks are discolored so that people know that they're hyperlinks, and also normally they're italicized or stand out bold, or they do something a little different to the text so that people realize that that is a link that's going to take them to another destination. Now this site actually doesn't look too bad. There's a little problem that I see at the very top of the page. I don't have a problem with the text scrolling across the page. You can read that pretty well. But this is very old school. That text at the top was very difficult to read. I would probably change the contrast there. This website seems to be laid out in just a table format. It's a little difficult to read. They got a little text shadowing at the bottom there. And tables are good for some things. This isn't a good way to present data. Once again, this is probably an old website that hasn't been updated in quite a while. Okay, this last one here is actually not a website, but a template that a website designer or a template designer is selling. And right off the bat, I can say a lot of things that I like. I love the image. I love the background. I love the colors. I love almost everything about this. The one thing that I don't like is the white text on the darker sandy areas. It's very difficult to read. So I'm going to set up another image here for you to look at, and I want you to compare. My image on the left is the colors that I used are, I took a dark color of the sky and used that for my text, and I used the darkest color of the pyramid and I used that for some of the other text and the headlines and so forth, and kind of just swapped out text colors. And I personally think it looks a lot more clear and a lot easier to read. You can judge for yourself. And alright, so now let's talk about color schemes and coming up with a color scheme. Now, a lot of times you might have a particular color that you would like, and you can, this particular program or online program here is called Palatron. All links to everything are in the description. And at the bottom left of the circle, there is a place where you could put in a primary color to use. And then from that, it'll pull up on the wheel. And then you have your different selections. Do you want a single color? Do you want multicolor? Do you want cross grade? Do you want it three-way? I normally pick 4 as giving me the most colors. And then you can do some tweaking from there if you would like. Maybe you want it to be a little darker, or maybe one of the colors doesn't, like I'm not really fond of that kind of greenish yellow, so I'm going to try to lighten that up a little bit. Now, when you select this particular link, when you select this link for presets, it opens up and gives you like different color palettes that you can select. If you want something very light, if you want something very dark, if you want something that's kind of on the neon angle. And so you can select the color palette that suits your needs here. That link to palette color is giving me a port 80 issue. So there's something wrong with the server there, or something wrong with the link itself. So I got the dark neon. Now let's look at examples down here. Now this is actually a neat feature that I thoroughly enjoy, and because it gives you a way of looking at the pages from different perspectives. Now white wasn't in there and black wasn't in there, but as you can see, they use both white and black in backgrounds because they're considered neutral colors. So you can scan through all of them. I don't really like this red in the text. It's kind of hard to read. Contrast there doesn't look real well. I might change that text to white if I was to go with that. I would probably go with the second choice with the black background on this particular color instance. The links down here on the bottom give you an opportunity to swap a secondary color, fine-tune what you've got, or kind of randomize. Okay, now we're going to go to the Export tab, and as you can see here, we have HTML format, CSS format, we have Sass format, which is another CSS style, but it allows for embedding elements within the CSS, and then it writes its own CSS code. I don't suggest any of these, not even the XML format. Now you could probably use the CSS format. Even if you don't understand CSS, I can give you a quick little rundown of how it works. As you see here, you have 4 colors, so it shows you all the different shades of the first, second, third, all 4 of your colors. There's 4 shades to each one. Now your hex code is all that you need, just the hex. So you could save that, and it saves as a php.txt file. This means you could open it even with Notepad, or if you had an editor like I use, Visual Studio Code or Notepad++, you could take off the .txt at the end and leave it as a PHP format and open it that way as well. But I do not want in any way for anything to seem confusing, so let's skip that part. Don't worry about those 2 programs I just mentioned, or 3 programs. So here's your text format, and as I told you before, you have 4 variants of each color, so you have all the different shades and everything. If you want to go with the lightest color on the first one and the darkest color on the last one, you're more than welcome to mix and match and use that however you want. That is one thing I do like about Paletron. The codes that you're going to use, as you can see, you have a hex code, you have RGB and RGBA. RGBA is the one that you're going to want to use. Now it has the A in there, and the A stands for alpha. So red, green, blue, alpha. And it's primarily used for setting transparencies and so forth. Now the last one, RGB0, I'm not real sure, and if somebody else knows and wants to comment what they are, I would be happy to learn. More than likely, you're only going to be using the hex code, which is the first one, or the second one, which is your RGB. After you have your information that you need and you have all your colors, you can either highlight everything, right click and hit copy, or press Control C to copy. On Mac, I would believe that would be Command C, and then open up a text document and press either Control V to paste or Command B to paste, or you can right click and click paste. Then you'll have your color code saved. The other methods of saving the file is like a PNG. It doesn't give you the numbers or anything. It just gives you a PNG image, which with a editor you'll be able to find out what the exact hex code is anyway. But I would just prefer to get the codes and then create little boxes and then color the boxes with that code and then type the code name, the hex number, into that box and then save that file as like a PNG or a JPEG image so that you have it for quick reference. If you're using Divi, you can go and save those images into your Divi editor. Now the next one that I want to talk about is the color calculator. Now this one is very similar to the Paletron. It doesn't have as many features. It doesn't offer you shades. It only offers you the original image colors that you select. So at the most that's 4. But you can use this. You can put in an original hex code to start with and then find colors that coordinate with it. And it does have a darker and lighter image selector on the left hand side where you can raise up or lower the tolerances of the colors to make them either brighter or darker, whichever you prefer for your particular project. It is pretty nice and it's pretty quick and easy to use. I would recommend it for somebody that's not that familiar with selecting colors and shadings and so forth, but I don't like the fact that it limits you to only 4 colors, not giving you additional shades of the color that you can use within your color scheme as well. Now when you go to save the image, it really only gives you one format that you can use to save, and that is as a PDF file. And that's not really too much of a problem because you can download the free Adobe PDF reader and then you'll have your color codes there. And then once you do, like I said originally, open up your image manipulator, draw out little boxes, put the color code, change the colors of the boxes to the colors of the hex codes that you just saved, and then type the hex code into each box so that you can see, then save that for quick reference. It also gives you the RGB figures as well, so whichever you prefer or like to use. I normally use hex codes on everything. Now this particular one, this palette generator, I absolutely love this. I'm going to upload an image, and then what it's going to do is it's going to scan the image and it's going to give me the colors of that image into a graph that I can then copy and paste the hex codes for. Now originally, after it selects the image, it only gives you 6 colors, but you can increase the number of colors, I believe up to like 10, or you can go fewer, but most of the time you want to go with a broader spread so that you could find the lightest to the darkest. That way you have the lightest color for your text, the darkest colors for your pages and headers and so forth, or vice versa if you want darker text and lighter headers and footers. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't really have a save method. The items above and below it are ads. So what you'll have to do is highlight all of the items on your right hand side, then right click, hit copy, and then open Notepad, right click, hit paste, or you can do the Control-C, Control-V method as well. Alright, the next one is coolers, and to be honest with you, this is my favorite of all. You can put in a primary color if you would like. You can type it into the bottom. Once you have your primary color, you can lock it into place. Then you can press the space bar. Now, let me back up right there. The first thing you'll have to do is register, but it is free to get a free account. But the great thing about registering is after you have a color code, you can save it to your profile so that you can always go back to it later. Now, as I was saying, you can put in a color code and then you can lock it into place. And then just by pressing the space bar on your keyboard, it will generate additional colors that coincide with that color. And you can, let's say you pick, well here, let's just follow along. I'm going to lock this one. Oops. Let me go back. Okay, there's my original color. I've locked it into place. Then I press the space bar and it produces more colors. Now I can pick a color that I like and lock it. I like this one. We'll lock it into place. Make sure it's locked before you press space. And then pick another color that you like. Then lock it into place. And then press space again. And you can continue doing this until you have all 5 of the colors that you want in your color scheme to show. You may not want pink and pink shows up. You may not want purple and purple shows up. So just keep clicking space until you get a nice color that fits in the color scheme that you're working with. This tiles thing up here, it gives you an option to change all your colors to either be darker or lighter, and you can select one of those, and then it'll pull up that perspective of your color profile. You can save the URL, but the URL, it changes as you change colors and everything. It's going to change in the address bar at the top, so you can copy that if you just want to come directly back to this particular color scheme that you just selected. PDF for the Adobe Reader PDF document, like we had to download earlier. It also has the SCSS, which is for Sass. And if you don't understand what CSS is, then you probably are not familiar with Sass. It is an extended version of CSS, but you will not be dealing with it when working on the websites at this time anyway. SVG, that is primarily for SVG images, and you would have to have a SVG editor in order to open the file, so that won't work. The last one, Copic, is a type of marker, and it's going to save color codes for the markers. So that's not really going to help you. I suggest that you save it as a PNG file. We're going to go over some image editing software, so you will be able to open up PNG images if you're not familiar with them at this time. As you can see, when you right-click and save the image, that you'll not only get the colors in a palette, but you'll also have all of the hex codes on there. And it doesn't give you the shading, but you can do that yourself if you need to. Okay, now we're going to talk about some image editing software. The first one I want to mention, which is highly popular, a little confusing if you haven't ever used it, but there are plenty of tutorials. There are tutorials on the GIMP site. There are a ton of tutorials on YouTube, and you'll be able to eventually work your way around using it. It is a little complicated when you first start using it. It is not what I would recommend as a user-friendly method for editing images, but it is very powerful and it can do everything that Adobe Photoshop can do. Personally, I use Adobe Photoshop and I use Adobe Fireworks, but I have older versions of both programs. I'm not paying that monthly fee because the monthly fee to have the Adobe products, I believe for Adobe Photoshop is, I want to say like $35 a month or something like that. And to have both of the programs, which I don't even know if they still make Fireworks or not, but to have both of the programs would just cost too much. Now, I would also like to mention here at the bottom of the page, there is Scribus and Inkscape. Now, I haven't really used Scribus, so I'm not familiar with it. I have it downloaded, and there's an extra step that you have to follow, another software that you have to download as well in order to get it to work. But if you follow along and read the directions and everything, you'll be able to get Scribus. And as I said, I haven't used it, but it looks like a pretty nice text editing software, especially for making like brochures and things of that nature. Now the next one is Inkscape, and Inkscape I do recommend if you're dealing with SVG images. I am not 100% sure if my current viewers watching this are dealing with SVG images in any way, shape, or form, but the item is here and it's free and it's very powerful. Now this last one, Swatchbooker, yes, that's what it's called, Swatchbooker. This is also a free program. I would not suggest it only because of the fact that you would have to download Python 2.5 and I believe another program called Little CMS. I'm not familiar with either one of them, and I really can't see any need for this particular program. Now let's go to Inkscape. Inkscape is again free to download. There are some tutorials on using it. There are also tutorials on YouTube. It's not going to be, oh, I downloaded it and I can go directly into using it. It does take a little bit of practice in getting used to the program, and I've used it a couple of times, and I had to follow a tutorial to get what I wanted to do done. Now I'm sure that if I was using it on a regular basis, then I would learn a lot of the secrets and tricks, but I don't really deal with SVG files or SVG images that often. I was trying to create my own, and I was able to do it, but I wasn't happy with the outcome of the original image. I'll probably try again at another time. Now, as I said, this program is 100% free, so you may download it if you're interested in learning about dealing with, manipulating, changing SVG images. Just in case you weren't sure, an SVG image is a scalable vector graphic file, and it is basically all of your text, colors, the entire image is made up of code, which makes the image very small in size and is scalable to any size that you'd like the image to be without a problem at all. Alright, so next on our list is Pixlr. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Pixlr.com. Anyway, it's a free image editor, but it is an online editor. It has a lot of features with it, and you can do just about anything with it. I would imagine that I haven't ever used it, but just by looking at the images and reading a little bit about it, I would say that it is just as powerful as Photoshop. Maybe it can't do everything that Photoshop can do, but it can probably do just about everything that you need it to do. Now, it has two versions. It has the PIXLR-X and the PIXLR-E. The E is the one that has a little bit more as far as editing goes, and the X version is a little bit more of a basic version. But I'm not 100% sure. As I said, I haven't used it. It said something at the bottom of the page about starting out with the X version and then saving and then going to the E version, I guess, for a little advanced editing. It has the free version, and the free version appears to offer everything with the exception of overlays, icons and stickers, and decorative text, and AI cutout. Which, to be honest with you, that might be a nice feature. I haven't ever had it available to me. It might be nice to have, but it's not needed. I haven't ever used it. And I don't know how crisp or clean it works as well. Now, it appears if you would like to buy the Pro version, which has the additional features, if you pay for the year, it is only $3.99 a month. Whoa, but if you pay by the month, it's $7.99 a month. So if you're going to go with the Pro version, I suggest you pay the full year in advance. Okay, next let's discuss Paint.net. Now, if I said that Paint.net was free, I apologize. I decided that I was going to download it to give it a try to see what it was like, and it ends up that it's $6.99. That's still not a bad price for it, and it does have a free trial. I tried downloading the free version, and even though I have a Microsoft account and I logged in and everything, I was sent to a page that says the page you requested is an invalid URL. I tried it multiple times and it kept giving me the same issue for the free trial. I do not know if that will be the case for the paid version. So you're more than welcome to give it a try. Hopefully it'll work for you because the price is pretty nice for what appears to be a pretty nice piece of software. Okay, next let's talk about Sumo Paint. This seems to be a very nice online editor, and it does have a paid version which you can download and then use the software on your computer. Now, the price for the download, I believe, is $19 a year, which is extremely cheap. If you try to get a lot of top name software on a yearly basis, the price is outrageous. And for $19 a year, that's well worth the money. But even better than that, if you don't mind doing your editing online in your browser, this looks like a fantastic piece of software to get it done. I will do another video between the two online free softwares that we saw, and I'm going to compare the two, doing some different things. So then you could really be able to find out which is better. In the meantime, you could try them both out for free, or you could go with another option. It's up to you. I'm just offering some sources.
Now, we know that image files can have a huge impact on WordPress load speeds and page times, so we need to be able to compress the images so that they work well and will speed up our page times and so forth. There's several plugins that are available, and I'm gonna leave the links to all of them below. One of my favorites is Resmush It. Resmush It compresses images in a lossless fashion so that you are able to restore the image to its original size. Some compressors use a lossy format, which is fine if it's just going to stay on your site. In fact, one thing that you can do is if you're using a lossy format, now let's say you have a site that you're going to sell images. You can use a lossy format for the original image that's actually on your site, create another folder where you'll store the images, and after the image is purchased, they will receive an email with a link to download the image from the directory that you created. That way you don't have to worry about ever trying to restore the original image. Now, the next one I would like to mention here is ShortPixel. ShortPixel is another fantastic smush program or compression program for images. It's fantastic, but it is lossy. So you will lose pixels when it's compressed. It removes the pixels, but the amount of compression that it creates is incredible. It does give you 100 free images that you can optimize per month, which is nice. However, if you're writing articles or posts on a regular basis and you are putting multiple images in each article, you know, that 100 you could reach that 100 limit pretty quick, in which case then you would need to upgrade to one of their packages. The next one I want to mention is Image Optimizer. It's a great plugin. It doesn't have the same compression ratios as the first two that I mentioned. However, things change over time. It could update. There's no telling. It's a fantastic plugin that a lot of people use, so I highly suggest it. The last one I want to mention here is WP Smush. Now, it has a free version which will compress all of your images for you. You don't have to worry about anything, and it also has a paid version, and the paid version will offer you a lot more features than what the free version does. It's a fantastic plugin. It's constantly updated. It's a great plugin. I highly recommend this one as well. Now, out of the four that I mentioned, I'm still going to say that Resmush It is by far my favorite, my go-to. Resmush It does have a size limit of 5 megabytes, so anything larger than that it will not be able to compress. Now, the last site that I want to mention is Compress PNG. You don't have to use this particular site if you don't want to. There are other sites out there that do the same thing. I personally really like this site. You can compress PNG images, you can compress JPEG images, and you can compress PDF files. If for some reason you have maybe ebooks in PDF format or something of that nature that you're selling, then this would be a great place to be able to reduce the overall size of the PDF. I want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe, stay tuned, and I will have a new video created shortly. Thank you.